So what the heck? Let's get right into it. Hey, welcome to
Wow.
Over 50 Starting Over. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison.
And Merle says, wow, because we just got on together and I said, hey, this is like the first time we actually haven't talked all week.
We
podcasts.
We haven't. Yeah. Last time we
haven't.
spoke was during the podcast last week.
Yeah. And so you go, well, how was your week? And I'm like, well, what the hell? Let's
Bing.
record it. I've had a very busy week. It keeps ramping up because more people, more of my clients are wanting to bring things online and automate them and put training materials.
Yeah, well,
which is great.
You gotta have to do.
It's a niche for me.
You have to do that.
You do. I mean, really, everybody's finally acclimated to Zoom, or at least getting there. Right. And it's a wonderful way to automate things, take a lot of the backbreaking work, in-person work off our hands. So I've been busy in that regard. Also, this is interesting, dude. Airbnb. All right. So
yeah,
all of us pretty much messing with my lights.
I was wondering where you were going.
Yeah. All of us Airbnbers really got screwed by this coronavirus, of course. And
right.
Yeah, everyone canceled, didn't have anyone for a few months. And if your house isn't paid off like ours, you're eating that monthly expense. Yeah. Well, I don't think I mentioned this to you before, but at the beginning of May, I had a young family, a couple with their young son, want to stay at my place for all of May. And
oh yeah, you did mention that.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So I have May taken care of, and they're from Brooklyn, and I've talked to them only over the last week or so. I got to know them, and they're just so nice. I mean, they are the nicest couple, and young son. And so they're from Brooklyn. This goes back to a conversation we had when the coronavirus first came up, because we were talking about how difficult it must be for people in New York in their tiny apartments and stuff like that they said exactly the same thing. They're like, we have a tiny apartment in Brooklyn, and if you're shut up in there, you're gonna lose your mind.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So he said, we saw the writing on the wall at the beginning of March, and we got family out here in Cleveland, so we came here virtually immediately and quarantined with the sister-in-law for 2 weeks, Airbnb'd it through April. Then they needed my place through May. Then I got this woman that's a scientist doing work on a work visa from Montreal. Okay, she's doing work for this biotech company in Beechwood, and she wanted my place for 6 months. And I'm like, yeah, man, that gets me right to the other side of the coronavirus, hopefully. You know what I mean? Back to some kind of stage of normal. Well, all of that was contingent on if they get funding now because of the coronavirus. It's screwing with us, all of us, in so many ways. And today she told me that she's gotten permission to work remotely from home in Montreal, so she's good. But my New York couple wants to stay through all of June. They don't want to go back to New York yet.
I don't blame them.
So that's the
what's going on in New York is so oppressive. It's terrible. God, I can't even imagine living there.
I could not. I couldn't under the best of circumstances, but that's me. Yeah.
Right. Me too.
It's so funny. When I first met them and was talking to them pretty extensively in the house, they're like, it's a typical Cleveland Heights house. He said, my son feels like he's living out in the country. Like they're on this big ranch and everything.
That's hilarious.
It is hilarious.
But for them, I could see that being the truth. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is like the country. You actually have a yard.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
It's unheard of.
Exactly. And I told them, like, I come in there and all the window shades are pulled wide open. I got the kind that you twist, and what do you call those little blinds?
Like louvers, or?
I think that's it. That's good enough. Yeah. And normally my Airbnbers, like without fail, come in there and they just twist those things. They can't get them closed enough,
Right,
because really
right,
your houses are rather side by side, and
right.
it feels like, if you're not used to that kind of thing, it feels like you don't have a lot of privacy, and they'll break those shades left and right because they can't twist them enough. These guys had the windows all pulled up wide open because they're from New York, and it's a totally different perspective. But God bless them. I'm glad that they
Hey,
love the place. I love them, so it's
it's a
working out great.
win-win. Yeah,
It's a
very
total
nice.
win-win.
I love that. That's so sweet.
Yeah,
That's a
it really is.
great story in the midst of everything that we've been going through.
You know,
Congratulations to you.
and thank you. And even more so, my potential Airbnb, the lady scientist, came over for a tour. They were very accommodating about it.
Right.
And so we're all standing there talking, and everyone is so nice and so accommodating to each other. She's like, I think I'm looking for a place to stay for 6 months. We don't know how this is going yet. And they're like, yeah, we're not sure what we want to do yet. And I'm like, in the middle. I could potentially lose both of them,
Yeah.
but that's not the top priority. It wasn't. I'll tell you what. That's what I got out of the conversation. It wasn't the top priority for any of us. We were all trying to accommodate each other the best way we could. It was
Wow. Well,
really nice. It was
that is
very
really
nice.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great story, Barry. I love that.
Well, it's a very heartwarming story,
Yeah.
and then so they were to be out. My current Brooklyn couple family were to be out by the 24th or 5th or something, because I had one person staying for one night on like the 27th, which was, they booked it months ago before Corona. Well, I canceled that because they probably weren't going to show anyway.
Right. Right.
Um, but then that gave my current family the opportunity to stay the rest of this month through the next month, not have to move. Imagine moving all their stuff again 2 more times. So
Right.
it's just a win. It's a win for everybody.
Ah,
Happy about
beautiful.
it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. How was your
Yeah.
week? Like I said, I haven't
Ah,
talked to you.
yeah, no kidding. Well, hey, Mother's Day was last Sunday,
Right.
and
I went and saw my mother
you
for the first
did. Good for
time since
you.
all of this.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I want to talk to you about, I had mixed feelings about that,
Yeah,
because
well.
I've been like, oh, everybody's kind of overreacting. Well, when it came to my mom, I'm
Hmm.
sitting here thinking there is like the most remote off chance that I could be a carrier
Right.
of this. And
Asymptomatic.
and I'm going to go there and see her. And well, we just, decided all is okay. No masks, but social distancing in the house, you know.
Wait. So you were social distancing in the house? I mean,
Well,
this is all new, right? Like,
sure, opposite
yeah.
sides
Like,
of the
did you?
room. She's on that couch, I'm on
Yeah.
this couch,
I
and we
mean, did you
visited.
hug your mom or anything?
No,
No.
no,
Gosh, that's
no.
so crazy.
It
I mean,
is.
that's I haven't seen my mom since this whole thing started, so I'm
Sure.
just
She's
thinking,
in
gosh.
Atlanta, right?
Well, yeah, it's outside of Atlanta, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
So how
uh,
did you started it off with
yeah,
Mother's
yeah.
Day? How did it go
So,
for you?
yeah, it was a little bit surreal because, I mean, it felt kind of odd all day long. Anne Marie, she's the mother in my house, and
Yep.
she, but it was like I kind of felt like we were trapped. I mean, we okay. So what we did, this was pretty cool. We set up a Zoom, and everyone in the family from California got on Zoom with my mother, and because Anne Marie's mom has passed away a few years ago now, so she's my mom's the matriarch of the family, and so we all
Mm-hmm.
did that. It was the first time we ever did anything like that. We spoke for about an hour, and my
How
mom.
many? How many of you?
So it was me and Anne Marie, and then my kids, Brandon and Hallie, and then Scott
Wow.
and Karen.
Oh,
And so
that's so
then we
cool.
had Mom and Larry, my stepfather Larry, on the call, and it was really neat. I mean, the cool thing was that we could see each other,
Yeah.
and Mom could talk to all of us, and the problem was that we all wanted to talk at the same time. You
I
know,
figured.
yeah, that it was took a little bit of getting used to it. At times it was a little bit frustrating. My mom, of course, she's the most patient person on
Yes.
earth, so she was totally cool with it. And it was a treat. It was a real treat for us to be able to do that.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
What would you say was a tip or whatever, a realization about getting used to having all these people on Zoom at one time trying to figure out who talks?
Yeah, that was the thing. I think we just naturally kind of figured out that, hold on a second, one person should talk, and everyone else should listen. And
Mhm.
let's try not to talk over each other. That kind of just worked itself out. And the other thing was that since it was for Mother's Day, it turned out that we kind of let my mom lead. If she was talking,
Good,
everybody else kind of stayed quiet.
good.
And it was a real blessing for the whole family. My mom, she's just so awesome, and she just really poured out love on all of us, and it felt
Ah,
really good, and that was pretty cool.
nice.
Then later that day, Anne Marie and we have not gone out to for takeout food at
Right.
all since this COVID thing happened. We've
Mhm.
been cooking like we've never cooked before. And by the way, Anne Marie, I mean, she has risen to just an all-time high
Wow.
level of cooking. I've been eating the best food. It's been very healthy as well. We've
Nice.
even been
Good.
eating salmon. I mean, that's unusual for me. I'm not a
See,
big fish guy.
Lisa makes it every week. Salmon.
So I've
So
been
good.
enjoying it. Yeah, the way she makes it,
How does
I
she
had
make it?
no idea.
Did she bake it or in a pan?
You know,
You
I,
don't know.
no, I have not been paying attention to how she's been making it. I tell you what, when it goes in my mouth, it tastes really good.
You're not doing much cooking, are you?
You know what? I actually she does the hard stuff, and
Uh,
I have
Peanut
been
butter and
like,
jelly. Yeah.
no, I like when we work together, I help her a lot, but I do like a lot of the prep, or I'll be doing dishes or cleaning stuff while she's
Mm.
doing stuff,
Oh,
so
that's
to
good.
make it really easy for her to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how we've been working. Or a lot of times I'll just finish off the dishes after it's done and everything. So because that's the if you didn't have to do all of that stuff when you're cooking would be fun. But
Yeah.
if you cook and you got to do all the cleaning and prep and
It's
all that.
true.
But Anne Marie, I mean, she's like a professional, and I don't want to get in her way,
Uh-huh.
because there's only one room enough for one person at the stove.
Sure.
I hate when you're being crowded out. So,
Yeah.
but anyhow, uh, I, I think it's on the stove that she's cooking it, but I couldn't tell you. All I can tell you is this: is it tastes good when I eat it. But here's another thing: is like when she says, "Hey, honey, we're gonna have salmon tonight." I gotta tell you, I still have that knee-jerk reaction where it's just like, "Oh, salmon."
Fish.
I
It's
have to
so
say,
good for you.
I
It's so
know.
good for you. Your
I've
heart.
been conditioning myself. I'll automatically say, "Oh, I'm so excited about that," but I think that's starting to sound like, "Oh, I'm so excited about
Uh,
that."
well, I'm glad you're eating that. It's very good for your heart. It's
Oh,
good
well,
stuff.
what I was going to say is so we ordered out for Mother's Day at this place called Joey down the street, and they make the best steaks. And
Nice.
so we had this amazing steak dinner on
Yeah.
Sunday night. My mouth is watering right now just thinking about it. I had a
Wow.
New York strip. She had a filet. Oh my gosh, what a
Mm.
treat. And because we haven't eaten out since this entire thing started
Mm-hmm.
like a year ago, but I know it wasn't. It was just over. I don't know if it was my imagination or what. It was like the best steak I ever had in my life. It was amazing.
Oh,
So,
after the drought that you've been in,
oh
it's like you
man,
got out of prison and there's your
it
first
was.
meal. Yeah.
And then we didn't have to really clean up anything. It was just
Oh,
like,
additional
ah,
bonus.
I know it was
Mm,
outstanding. So
nice.
yeah, that was pretty cool.
Very cool.
Outside of that, in the week, we got this. We were coming up on May 15th, and that's when the stay-at-home order was supposed to end. And
Right.
then we found out this week that it got extended through August
What?
here in Los Angeles.
What?
Yes, it was just like
There
outrageous.
is going to literally be a rebellion going on, even though it's all far left and everything for the most part. Seriously, dude, the economy in California is a huge part of the national economy, a
It
huge
is.
part. I don't know. I don't know. This is the first I've heard of that.
Yeah,
So
well,
tell
it's
me
Los
more.
Angeles County, so it's a county thing, and this is the largest county in the United States population wise. We have over 10 million in this county,
Wow.
and so here's the deal: is that in the midst of that, they're still opening up some things. It doesn't mean that everything is closed. So one of the things a couple of things that have happened is, one is that the parks have opened up, the trails and things like that opened up. So
Good.
so that is a pretty cool thing. I mean, Anne Marie and I went out on a hike the other day to one of our favorite parks, and we hiked through the woods, and there's all these flowers and different colors and everything.
Beautiful
It was
time
almost
of
like
year.
it was like we were shocked by nature because of how we haven't been able to be in nature, and it was almost overwhelming. It was so beautiful.
Oh, it's a perfect time of year. You know,
It was. Well, the other thing though is that there's so many bees out there. So there was a few places that we walked through where it was like you couldn't help hearing like this. We kind of freaked out on that. I'm not used to that. Especially, have you seen these things called the murder bugs? These
I just heard about it. You mean like I saw
huge wasps?
I thought it was bees, and I was like, "Is this
Yeah.
the killer bees from the '70s?"
No, they're a different thing. Well, you get this in your head, and then you hear that noise.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
it's a freaker, man.
dude, tell me about this murder bee.
Okay, so they're from Japan, and now they're huge. I mean, they're like this big. They're like monsters. They're like the Terminator of bees. Okay, and they've got this ginormous stinger on them.
Ooh.
And so here's the thing. This is the freakiest thing. It's similar to the whole idea of the killer bees. You know, remember back in
From
the
South
70s,
America, yeah.
where it was like they're coming to America.
TV horror movies.
Yeah. Oh my God, I remember having nightmares back in the 70s when I heard
we were
about these
kids.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to be here by, it seemed like some, way off in the future. Well, they're here now, and they're not anything like what they said it was going to be. I mean, sure, people have been killed by them, but it's not like mosquitoes kill way more people than these bees do. But anyway, back in the 70s, I saw this documentary with my family. My brother and I were totally freaked out by this documentary. It was called Hellstorm Chronicles. And it was about all these bugs. It was disgusting. I mean, he was totally freaked out by these bugs. But this one scene had to do with this Japanese bee that we're calling the murder bug or murder bee.
And you're saying you first heard about this when you were a kid?
In the 70s. Okay.
Wow,
and I'll never forget because it made such an impression on me. So what it was these huge bees were hovering outside of a hornet's nest. And these hornets, it was a big old nest. These hornets were coming out of the nest, and these huge bees were attacking the hornets. And what they do is they cut the heads off of the hornets when they come out of the nest. So all like these yellow jackets, as soon as they
got
come
little
out,
samurai swords. How do they cut?
It's like they have these huge mandibles, and they are fast and they're accurate. And as soon as they come out, pick, snip, and so there's this big pile of bees down below the nest, and they take over the nest, and they take all the honey out of the nest, or so I don't know what they're doing with the nest, but it was horrifying.
They're true samurai bees. Samurai bees from Japan.
If you ever see a picture of them, like they show them like from the
I gotta look it up. I gotta look it up on YouTube, man.
You see them from the front, like you're looking at them like in the face. First off, they look like some type of mechanical horror movie monster, like something evil built. And then in the center of their head, it almost looks like there's a skull right there, like one of those Totenkopfs from the Nazis. You know how they had that skull on there? It looks like it's on the bee. I mean, these are horrifying. And I saw this documentary, or it was like a YouTube, where this guy purposely captures one of those bees and he makes it sting him on the arm.
You gotta be kidding.
First off, what an idiot.
Yes.
Secondly, you should have seen what it did to his arm.
What did it do?
Oh, it swelled up like there was like a softball underneath of his forearm. It was terrible. And also, Oh, there it is. Oh my God! Look
Look
at
at the
that thing.
pictures on that. Now look at this one, Merle. And I'm sorry for people listening to the podcast. So I'm going to
Look how
describe it.
big that is.
This thing is huge. You see, this guy is holding it between his, I'm sure it's dead, between his
I
thumb
hope
and
it's dead.
his thumb and forefinger. You have to believe that this thing is at least 3 inches
Yes,
long.
it's about
It's
3
huge.
inches.
Orange head with these pincher
Look how
things.
mean it looks.
It looks like a lot like the alien
Yes,
predator thing
yes.
on the horror movie.
It's
Which,
terrifying.
so you say tearing these heads off, it's doing
Yeah,
it
look at
with
those mandibles.
yeah, those mandible teeth of his.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it snips them right
Oh,
off, and it's so quickly too. It's crazy. And so this guy,
look
look
at
at that
that.
stinger on that thing.
Oh,
This guy allows himself to be stung by this thing, and you should have seen him afterwards. He was acting all like there was no problem and everything. After he got stung, his partner was like, is okay. He went to point to it, and the guy's like, "Don't touch it! Don't touch it! Don't touch it!" I mean, this guy was in terrible pain. First off, I'm looking for a job right now. That's not the job I want. I mean, you can take that job. I'm sorry.
right. Do you, as you bring it up, do you want to share any updates? You've had some very interesting interviews and offers. Do you want to share any updates, or you want to keep on down low for now?
No. It's okay. I mean, I've had some really great experiences, and also frustrating at the same time,
Mhm.
because I've come to the goal line of getting a job offer,
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, it's all going through, and then I find out, well, no, we got a hiring freeze now because of
Oh yeah.
COVID-19.
Yes.
And that's happened a couple of times.
Yes.
Very, very frustrating. And then I also had an experience where there was a job I really thought was, man, this is what I really want. I thought for sure I had that job, and I got the Dear John letter in the email, and it's just crushing. I mean,
It is crushing.
it's soul crushing, you could say. And it takes a lot of character to be able to go through those
Bounce
types
back.
of situations and everything. Because first off, we can all say, "Oh, it's nothing personal. It's just business," and
We
that's
say that.
true.
We say that.
It's the truth. But you're a human being, and I
Mhm.
just want to say a couple things about that. First off,
Please.
my experience is this: it's okay to be hurt. You're not a wimp because
Mm.
you were hurt by that whole thing. I think if anybody tells you that they didn't have their feelings hurt by that kind of thing, or were frustrated by that kind of thing, they're lying to you,
Or have
or
never
they're just
experienced that.
yeah, they
That's
they
also a
never
lie.
experienced it. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, it's okay.
Mhm.
Deal with your emotions. I think, in fact, Barry, one of the things when we were talking about our dogs
Mhm.
before Stella passed away, and before your dog Lainey passed away
Mhm.
as well, we talked about, it's okay. We both had these experiences where we were experiencing emotions about our dogs uh, pending passing,
Mhm.
and saying, hey, it's a good thing to be able to get that out of your system,
Mhm.
but don't
Let me
stay
just
there.
explain that. That probably sounded a little ambiguous or confusing to listeners. Merle and I talked about, we just love our dogs so much. And I said, there's a Buddhist philosophy that you should contemplate death, which is so anti-Western uh, civilization, where we can't talk about death. We don't talk about it. And as soon as we do, everybody gets uncomfortable and wants to get away from the subject as soon as
No,
possible.
yeah.
So Merle and I talked at length a number of times about just when it's quiet at night, think about your dog passing, because it's going to happen, and it just takes the irrational edge off of it,
No, it was
doesn't?
like I was able to come to terms with it
Yeah.
before it actually happened. It
Yeah.
wasn't. I knew it was going to happen. I mean, everybody knows that's going to happen, but it kind of took the shock away from
The
it. I remember
irrational
when I
part
was
of it off. Yeah.
dealing with it as it was happening, because we had to put her down.
Mhm.
It was almost like I was having an out of body experience while that
Mhm.
was happening,
I know. I know.
and but I won't say that it was an easy thing to deal with, because it was
Mm-mm.
hard, but
Mm-mm.
but it
We had to
was,
put Lainey down too,
yeah, it was
man.
a thing. Well, it's the same thing. You're
Mm.
you're dealing with, it's grief is what you're dealing with, and when you're
Absolutely.
on the hunt, sometimes you're going to have to deal with grief, and that's okay.
Okay, now we're back
be
to
okay
talking
with
about the job hunt, right?
right, right,
Okay.
exactly. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just saying there's a similarity. You
There
got to
is.
be okay with that. And I would just say this is, and I've said this before on the show, is just keep your legs moving, keep moving forward.
Mhm.
This is the time to, you got to keep marching on. And when you do that, good things are going to happen. And here's the overall thing for me, in me and my faith is this, is that I do believe the scripture that's in Romans chapter 8 that says that all things work together for those who love the Lord, for good. And I do believe that there is a position out there for me, not a job, but a position
Better.
of influence where
Mhm.
he has it reserved for me. And all these experiences that I'm having are going to be useful to me
Agreed.
in that position. And already I think that even being able to share this with you is something useful. So
Mm,
I'm already getting
agreed.
something good out of it, but I won't say that those things have been enjoyable. But I
Of
will
course
say
not.
this, that my wife has been such a great support
Ah,
person for me. She is just the epitome of unconditional love. And boy,
yeah,
I think when you have family around you that just keeps lifting you up, boy, is that ever priceless.
it sure is. Yeah. Um, as this person that's been in sales your whole adult life,
Yeah,
me, I've been a business owner pretty much my whole adult
yeah,
life.
you have.
Same thing.
Yep.
You have to be prepared for the ups and the downs, and sometimes the biggest ones come along that the rug gets pulled out from underneath of you. You do not expect it. Kind of like that job that you had. I've had contracts that, hey man, looks signed, sealed, and delivered, and last second pulled out right up from underneath of me. And you got to learn how to deal with it. You got to bounce back. You can't let it beat you up. And
Yeah.
I want to also say that when I shared with Lisa, when you said, "Man, that job that I was really digging, um, got the Dear John letter," Lisa, without any prompting, said right away, "I can't wait to see what happens from here, what he lands, because it's going to be perfect." And she went on to talk about she has the best O5O story. We talk about it all the time, how she had a couple of I don't even want to say ups, a couple of downs from one career position to the next over about a 3-year period. That just the experience that she got from those was enough to land her this dream position where she's making all the difference that we always hoped and dreamed for. And she could not have seen it over that 2 year period. And that's what she was speaking towards. She said, "I can't wait to see what happens with him because it's going to be like miraculous."
All right. Well, message to Lisa that put a gigantic lump in my throat.
Mm,
Thank you for saying
mm.
that.
It's
That
true,
is
man.
very encouraging. I agree.
Oh,
I
you've
think
lived through
that's
it.
important. I totally agree that something wonderful is on
Yeah.
the horizon, and I can't wait to find out either. And I
Mm,
want it to happen soon, but
sure.
I also believe that it's something that has to happen in God's timing, and I've lived through that before as well, and I have faith that those things are going to happen. But it's great to hear encouragement,
Yeah.
like that. That's the kind of thing that Anne Marie says as well. And my mom and my brother and my kids and and you, Barry, everybody's so encouraging. And I'm so blessed to have
You
such
are.
a support group around me that actually loves me and cares about, what's happening with me. So
Hey,
thank you. Thank you.
you fashioned your life. That's why you got so many people around you that love you so much. Which, speaking of that, makes me think of, I wanted to mention that an ex coworker of yours, Megan
Oh yeah.
Buckaloo. Yeah,
Yeah.
she wrote
Megan
in.
Buckaloo.
Yeah, because I was talking about that at the Cleveland Clinic across from the campus.
Yes, right.
They opened up this building, old educational building, put 1,000 beds for COVID patients in there and never really used it. She spoke to that. She said, "I was involved in a 1,000 bed COVID project at the HEC Center. They are saying we may need to open it in the fall." Guess we'll see, she says.
Oh,
You
wow.
guys are fantastic! Exclamation point. Love your podcast. I was one of the nurses that worked with Merle on his sales team. He rocks! Exclamation point. I miss you, Merle! Exclamation point.
Oh, I missed all that last part. I saw the first part of it, but somehow the last part got truncated. But
Because
oh,
we
that's so
replied,
cool.
and then she replied back with that last part.
Oh, I see. I missed that. Well, you
Okay.
know, that was well, how nice is that? Yeah. And Megan worked on my sales team. And I got to say, just shout out to Megan. She's a nurse, and what a great salesperson she is. She was sort of an overlay to our
Hmm.
sales team. So I would have a sales executive, and then we have an engineer, sales engineer, and then a clinical consultant. And then a lot of times I would come along in the sales process to help out as well. And Megan was, she's one of the best at this. And
Hmm.
she, the thing that I loved about her was that she was we talked about engineers that can think outside of the box.
Oh,
She
yeah.
definitely was a nurse that she's a very good nurse, first of all, great experience. But in a sales scenario, she was consistently thinking outside of the box on ways that she could
Cool.
relate our product to how we could solve their problems internally. And she became invaluable to our sales team. I loved working with her. She was also just a great person, and she had these amazing nursing stories. You ever talk to a nurse that's been involved in critical care or the ER or whatever? They have these amazing stories. Some of them are tear jerkers. Others
Sure.
are funny as you would not believe.
Sure.
I'm
Sure.
thinking of one that I can't say, but she cracks me up. Boy. It's great having friends like that. I'm glad she's watching the show. Hey, speaking of that, last week I put my podcast on Facebook, which I never
Yes.
was doing in the past, and mostly because on Facebook,
It's
people can be
vile.
so mean,
It's vile.
and I was kind of like a little bit, shy
Apprehensive.
of
You're,
putting
you're
that
you're
up
putting your
there.
neck out there, dude.
Yeah,
Every time I force myself to put out, I really don't post anything else on Facebook other than our stuff, and I've done it since
right.
the beginning. And every time I do it, it's like, oh shit, I'm sticking my neck out there.
You really are, and
Yes,
but we got a lot of really good feedback
we get
on
most of our
Facebook.
views from
Yeah,
Facebook.
well,
And we have such a huge LinkedIn presence between the two of us and the O5O and Edwards Communications. We have a huge LinkedIn presence, and you think we would be acclimated more to that. But people visit Facebook on average 20 times more than they do LinkedIn.
yeah, you know what? It makes a lot of sense. And
Mhm.
what I thought was funny is that Kurt Titmus
Oh, yeah.
responded back and had watched our show, and we just happened to talk about the
That
dog and
dog.
the Titmus house and
Right.
everything. And I ended up having this fantastic back and forth with him, finding out about him and his family, and our friend
Wow.
John Haydu.
Oh, what's up with John?
Do you know that he married Glenn Fitch's younger sister?
You got to be kidding me. And people, by the way, Glenn was one of our Animal House compadres back then,
Glenn was
who
such a
passed
great guy.
away.
He had cystic fibrosis, but
Right.
this guy, he was constantly having to go to the hospital. But what a great
Mhm.
attitude he had!
He
What a
did.
great sense of humor he had as well.
Great
And
guy.
John and Glenn were really good friends. Glenn passed away probably about 15 years ago now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the meantime, John married Allison, his Glenn's
Wow.
younger sister. And Kurt was saying, I really think that Glenn would be really happy with that. So it
Oh,
was
that's
just great to
wild.
learn that information.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so cool. Oh, okay. Where do we head from? Oh, you know what? I want to say something that I often come back with some, hey, I've been watching this inspiring video or this, that, or the other. But when you mentioned Facebook and we had this quick conversation about how hard it is to put your neck out on Facebook, because it's what I've been into lately is learning about the postmodernism movement and the neo-Marxism thing that's directly tied to it. That's what is all over Facebook. That's what's all over all social media. It's the far left movement of trying to silence everybody, shame everybody, call you a racist, sexist, xenophobe,
Yes.
whatever, you know. And I do a lot of writing on Quora. Quora, for people that don't know, is like Reddit. And if you don't know what that is, these are sites where it's for writers. You go on there, there are questions, and you can write answers to them. And the most popular ones rise to the top. So that's what you see in your feed. And then you can respond to those articles that are written. So I find it very, very interesting. And it's a large way of where I get my news. I'm not a far left CNN, MSNBC kind of guy for sure. And as far as Fox goes, I only watch the 5 on that. I don't like any of their other I think the morning show is probably pretty good though.
It actually,
Yeah, I would think
Chris
it would.
Faulkner, she's
Yeah.
actually pretty good.
So I've been seeing things repeatedly on Quora about people. One guy did his far left rant and mentioned that Jordan Peterson is an alt-right activist. And I just went on there and I said, whoa, I don't care what your political leanings are, but you can't call Jordan Peterson alt-right. He's nothing of the kind. He's a clinical psychologist, and he really speaks to mental health well-being. And he went and as proof, he shared a video from NBC Nightly News from some leftist reporter, 2-minute video, proclaiming of basically his comrade stating that Peterson is alt-right. And I'm like, what, this is not credible in the slightest. And you have to show me from the source where and I said, do a quick Google search and you will find that he calls himself a traditional British liberal. All right. So you can't this is where fake news is coming from. And I'm sorry, but it's coming from both sides. When we use people from our extreme, whether you're on extreme left or you're on extreme right, and if you're using your teammates as sources, you're just doing a circle jerk. I mean, this is where fake news is coming from when you're not verify, and it's hard to verify things these days because everybody's doing this. It's a mishmash, and people just will not come somewhere in the middle to find some verified resources. So anyways, when I prove somebody wrong like this, they complain to Quora about me, and they have my answer deleted. And this has happened 3
That's
times.
really.
This has happened 3 times in the last week, including
Oh
last
my
night.
gosh, you're kidding me.
It is a far left, postmodern, neo-Marxist, and it's going all across social media. Because all these are millennials that own these platforms that are all bought into that. And to say, it sounds like maybe pompous. What's Barry talking about? Postmodernism, neo-Marxism, and it sounds maybe even alt-right. Okay, it's not. Okay, briefly, this is very confusing. We'll go on about it more another time. But postmodernism is a movement that started from the art movement. Okay, we got to back up a little bit. Modernism came out of the Industrial Revolution. And so out of that came the necessity of unions with the 40-hour work week. So we're not doing slave labor anymore, right?
Right.
So now we have this beautiful nuclear family structure. And remember the heydays of the 50s and the beginning of the 60s? Well, by the late 60s, people's minds are expanding. The artists are architects, painters, sculptors are like seeing this mass-produced society that we lived in and its rigidness of what we're doing, which has worked well for us for a few decades there, but they're turning it on its ear because that's what artists do. This is how postmodernism evolved out of it. So you can ask any of these modern, no, I should say postmodern. The postmodern movement was turning that nuclear family structure, the whole industrial revolution structure on its ear and question,
Yes.
Andy Warhol with the Campbell soup cans,
Right.
all of that,
Right.
and those kinds of
Yeah.
things. Architecture that looks like it can't balance right,
Right.
it's
Right.
all trying to challenge things. That's what artists do.
Right.
Well, the philosophy of it. So you could ask, I watched this documentary, all of these postmodern artists, they're being asked, what is postmodernism?
Uh-huh.
All of them start the same way. I don't really know. It's just questioning things. It's purposely ambiguous. It's about challenging the authority, the status quo. It's murky. The postmodern philosophy that has been guiding the education system, these professors and stuff, is purposefully ambiguous. It's purposefully made to not be able to question it. It's just anti-establishment.
I gotcha.
It's
Purposely made so you can't question it.
It's
In
exactly
other
right.
words, back to your response back to this person who said that who made the alt-right comment about Jordan Peterson. Once you actually question his logic on that, you get deleted.
Yeah, you know what they usually do? They get emotional.
Yeah, well,
They get
that's
defensive.
exactly, and
Yes.
usually that's when you're called a xenophobe or a bigot, or
And that's the other two times that I got deleted is a feminist talking. Oh, because I made a comment about the Biden thing, and I just said I thought it was funny. And I just replied, and just like that, poof, Me Too is over.
Amazing, yeah.
And feminists went nuts. And I just came back and I said, Monica Lewinsky. I said, you're quoting, once again, she quoted another feminist article to show me how that Tara Reid is not believable, and this feminist is going to tell you why. And I said, you just quoted your teammate here, okay? I said, you could probably interview 1,000 feminists, and you're going to get 900 that are going to say that Tara Reid is not believable, because they will eat them alive, because feminists identify with the far left. Their entire identity is based in this feminist crusade.
And you are a liberal. I just want to just say
Correct.
that
I'm
you're
a
liberal.
classical
You're not
liberal.
Yes,
I'm a classical
exactly.
liberal.
I just
And
want to say
to
this is
them,
coming
I'm
from a
alt-right.
liberal.
To
Right.
them, I'm
Yeah.
alt-right.
You're alt-right. And what is alt-right, by the way? It's another made-up term to disparage other people. They're alt-right.
I thought alt-right was Ku Klux Klansmen.
Yeah. When did
And
that term actually come up? I never even heard of it until Trump. I mean, this alt-right thing is suddenly people are alt-right. I've never heard people in the Klan being called alt-right. You know what? People in the Klan aren't alt-right. They're not on the right. They're not. Look, the history of the Klan is that back in the 1800s, they were used as the enforcement arm of the Democratic Party. That's what happened. That's the Democrats were the alt. Now people are going to try to say that, well, Democrats are now the Republicans today. That's not true.
Oh,
it's
God, no, it's
dereliction
not.
of history.
It is.
But if you're going to say that the KKK is on the right, you got to look at the history here. That is absolutely a lie. But getting back to what you were saying, isn't it interesting? I went to a modern art museum. This was, boy,
Those are hard to take.
It was last summer. I was kind of excited about going to this. And
I started out in fine art in college, by the way.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're one of them.
Yeah, I'm one of them. Yes.
I think that's why we get along so well.
Yeah.
Because we've always been able to talk about this kind of stuff. But so I went to the museum, Anne Marie and gosh, who did we go? Oh, Anne Marie's brother Paul. And I thought this will be fun. It wasn't. Because I like to read. I used to not be like this, but I like to read. What is that I'm looking at? And they have a little write up and everything. Everything that they had in there was infuriating. I mean, it was a literal attack on everything that I believe.
Wow.
And it was just seething seething with hatred about exactly what you're talking about, the nuclear
Anti-establishment.
family. It was totally anti-establishment. And it was, I ended up telling Anne Marie, you know what, I'm out of here. I'll wait for you outside. This is not fun for me. I'm just, everything I'm looking at is making me angry. And it seemed like it was this belief in the dystopian philosophy. I mean, just
Good word,
hardcore.
man.
And
Dystopian philosophy, nihilism is at the core of it.
it was hardcore. And here's the other thing. Every time I would get too close to one of these pieces of art, there was some kind of person there that was like, don't get too close to that. I mean, they were mean as I don't know what. I mean, seriously, it was, I left there so angry, you know. I was just like, are you kidding? They were treating me like I was a little kid, you know, like, don't touch the pottery. Just,
right.
It was infuriating, actually. I never want to go there again.
Right.
But I wanted to bring up something. I saw this documentary. This kind of leads into, I mean, this kind of goes along with what you were saying. I saw this documentary, and it was called Out of Shadows. And it was, my brother had forwarded this link to me. It was on YouTube. And it's a documentary of a guy. He used to be a stunt man. And long story short, he's making a connection between the CIA influence on Hollywood. Very interesting.
I've never heard of such a thing.
Me neither. This goes all the way back to World War II and how they were using movies and short clips and everything. Disney was involved in this, and how to manipulate, I would say, people's minds into going along with everything that the government was doing.
Yeah, I believe that.
And so an interesting tidbit of information came out of that is the term conspiracy theory. And interestingly, it was the CIA that came up with that term. And the CIA came up with that term during the mid to late 60s, and they termed it towards anybody that was questioning the JFK assassination being linked to Lee Harvey Oswald. And they were, you know, all these theories.
I thought they wanted you to believe it was Lee Harvey Oswald.
That's exactly right. And anybody that said that it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald was a conspiracy theorist, right?
Gotcha.
And it was a way of disparaging or really shutting down the opposition to that premise.
And they did that with the whole UFO thing.
By shaming them, with this whole "you're a conspiracy
very
theorist."
Effective,
and it's extremely effective. And here we have today, interestingly, this whole information that's come out regarding Obama's involvement in the Michael Flynn subject, and that he was orchestrating this whole thing from the top. All of the mainstream media are saying that anybody that believes in this is a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I think that from what I've seen on that, I tried to get a little bit educated on it. And what I'm coming away with right now is they seem to be saying that they're withholding a lot of information. So to me, right now, it seems a bit like too much conjecture right now.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. I would say that when the mainstream media starts calling things or ideas conspiracy theory, that's a big red flag that you should probably look into. Like when they all start saying it, not when just one person starts saying it, but when they all start saying it at the same time. Oh, that's conspiracy theory. That's probably a good indication that it's not a conspiracy theory. And I think that when you start to take a look at all of the evidence and the timeline of how everything happened, where Hillary Clinton's emails get hacked into and all this information comes out, and then Trump says, oh, Russia, if you have these emails that Hillary bleached, then we'd like to see this. And just think about that. Hillary, there's a order for her to turn in her 50,000 emails, and suddenly, oh, I bleached those out, and nothing happens to her.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and then suddenly, oh, he said Russia, and then now there's this big thing that, oh, he was colluding with the Russians, and this all started with Michael Flynn, where we've been hearing this whole thing about Michael Flynn being unmasked. And I didn't know what that meant, but here's the crazy thing about what it means is that the NSA is tracking your phone calls and a lot of phone calls out there. And typically they're going after foreign operatives that are here, like ambassadors and things like this. They're not allowed to give information or show information with Americans' names associated with it. But there is a process that you go through that can unmask those names. In other words, you see these documents where it's like the name is redacted.
Yeah.
Unmasking means you find out who those names are. And so they unmasked, all these people were asking to unmask Michael Flynn's name associated with this Russian ambassador. Now, Michael Flynn was the national security advisor to Donald Trump. He had been appointed that right after the election. And now you've got 36 people within the Obama administration asking to have Michael Flynn's name unmasked. Now, you already have the Trump dossier out there, which we know was completely fake, that was financed by the Clinton administration as a result of this election, where he was saying, oh, Russia, let's see these documents, which was probably a joke.
And again, no legal ramifications to them.
And so here's what it's looking like: that they had a very convenient excuse to associate Donald Trump with Russia, and they used Michael Flynn. There was a meeting in the White House on January 5th, 2017, where you've got Obama, you got Comey, Clapper, Brennan, Susan Rice, you've got Yates in that meeting, and Obama clearly knows about these calls that Michael Flynn is having with the Russian ambassador, talking about sanctions that the Obama administration had put onto the Russians as a result of election interference. Okay, this is all proactive stuff right here. And then before you know it, within a few days, all this information about the call is in the news. Well, that's a felony, by the way, putting classified information, leaking classified information and putting it in the news. And then now you've got the whole Michael Flynn thing happening. You've got the FBI distorting information. They actually took notes on the Michael Flynn interview, which, by the way, was inappropriate. It didn't go through the proper channels. You've got Comey even admitting that he got him while their resistance was down. And then they falsified the information that they got from him. They railroaded him. And now that leads into the whole impeachment of Donald Trump. In other words, it's looking like people in the Obama administration orchestrated a coup attempt against the incoming president. Nothing like this has ever happened. And now you've got the news agencies all saying, this is a conspiracy theory. It's interesting that they pick that terminology to use to shut down any kind of debate regarding this. Now, here's the other thing, too, is that, a lot of people would be tempted to say, oh, this is a Democrat thing, and the Democrats were doing this. I wouldn't say that. I would say that it's it doesn't matter. Democrat, Republicans, you've got a Republican Congress and a Republican Senate when this first came out that did nothing to prevent any of this from happening. They didn't do any of their investigation. They didn't shut this down. In other words, if you're seeing a crime taking place and you have the ability to stop it, but instead you just let it happen, aren't you complicit? I mean, so this whole thing about the deep state this, the deep state that. Well, it does sound a lot like conspiracy theory, but it's starting to look very evident that there is a gigantic deep state that's actually occurring right beneath our noses. And when you start to take a look at the fact that this whole impeachment thing happened, and immediately after that, this whole COVID-19 thing happens.
All right,
and
now you're getting
shut down. Wait, hold on. The COVID-19 isn't the thing. It's shutting down the economy. That's the thing. Look at what these governors are doing. Look what they just did in Los Angeles. You're going to shut down commerce until August? Well,
We
how
didn't
does that
fully
make any
flush
sense?
that out because I don't understand how we are all supposed to economically survive that.
I don't either. But think about this: how we had an economic boom happening all the way up until the end of impeachment, and then there's this convenient excuse to completely shut down the economy shortly before the election. And right now, we're looking at unemployment at levels that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. I
Mhm.
mean, come on. The timing of this is very suspicious to me.
You know what? I think California and New York is a little volatile right now. I think California is the only state in the union that could get away with doing that because it's so far left that it's going to take these guys so long to actually rise up and say we need our constitutional rights. Because as we just talked about a little while ago, it's pretty much, they're more about anarchy as far as our government structure is concerned. And so, you look at Michigan, who were protesting for their constitutional rights a month ago,
Yeah.
and Ohio, our restaurant patios have opened up 2 days ago now.
Beautiful. I
It
love
is.
that.
So we are on the road, and that's going to start accelerating. Everything's going to start accelerating here. The demand is there to start opening things up. The awareness is there that if that doesn't seem to be in California. That if the virus doesn't kill us, starvation will on the other end of this
Well,
through economic
I
devastation.
agree. I agree. So this is the worse than the COVID virus is how I'm seeing it. And if you take a look at what these governors in these states like California or Michigan or Pennsylvania are saying, if you try to stand against these people, you're not only selfish by trying to feed your family,
Mm,
but you're a bigot, you're a xenophobe,
mm.
you're inciting
Playing,
violence, you're
playing
trying to
right
kill
in,
other people. Yeah, they're
playing
doing the
right
same
into that
thing that they do.
postmodernism shit.
That's where I was going. They're
Yeah,
doing the same thing that they did to you on Quora.
yeah.
It's the exact same. It's the same playbook every
Mm,
single time. It's the same playbook that the people that call other people using a conspiracy theory. Oh,
mm.
you're a conspiracy theorist. It's the same playbook that the CIA was using to get rid of their enemies regarding JFK. I mean, come on. This, this sounds crazy. I know I'm probably sounding like I'm off the deep end, but look, I'm still looking for a job, and it has everything to do with this.
It
I'm a
does.
very qualified person, and yet I can't find a job. You know what? I'm not happy with this. I'm
Well,
not happy with how this is going. And it seems like there's nothing I can do about it except for talk to you about it and let our fans make a decision for themselves. But if you add up all the pieces, it smells like a rat.
yeah, I know. What bothers me the most about your situation is getting personal, but is that you had a couple of offers of really quality stuff that were pulled away from you because of this. It was
Right.
absolutely because of this. You would have been working 6 weeks ago in something that you would have loved and excelled at.
Well, and you look at this. I saw one of my friends put something on Facebook, and it was like a meme that said, "Hey, everybody talks about socialism. How do you like it now? Standing in lines, not being
Uh,
able to get the food you want, having to get a check from the government." And then somebody
wow.
came in. Somebody came in and said, "Yeah, well, I haven't seen any of those Trump lovers rejecting any of those checks that are coming in." I thought, what an ugly thing to say.
Mm,
And then the person's wife came back in and said, "Look, whatever side you're on, we're trying to take care of business. We're trying to take care of our
mm,
families. It has nothing to do with Trump or Obama. It has to do with the American way of life and the Constitution. And we're just trying to make ends meet." But I got to tell you, you know, uh, the thing is that I don't want to have to take a check from the government or
right,
rely on the government, but the situation is forcing people into that.
right.
And when you're forced into that, then your freedom is completely taken away.
Hmm.
And you don't have a way of living the lifestyle that you want to live anymore. You're completely dependent on this political elite who has come in to become God in your life, and they're
Hmm.
never going to give you what you really want. You're
Mhm.
never going to be able to have freedom. You're never going to be able to say what you want. You're never going to be able to live free. It's absolutely amazing what I'm seeing happening in the destruction of our constitutional way of life that we have here in America.
I think it's going to be very interesting in the near future, meaning the next few years, to see if this far left movement actually peters out. What I've been thinking it would, because it just doesn't make a lot of sense, to tell you the truth.
It
But
doesn't.
so many people are really bought into it. And think about why. This is one of the, hey, this is the third reason why I got uh, my answer deleted on Quora. Somebody made mention of Joe Biden picking a VP, and it had a leftist slant to it. And I said, basically, I'm not looking at it, but I said basically, he should, the best thing he could do is forget about identity politics and pick the best person for the job, because he's probably not going to make it through his presidency, and they're going to be running the country. And
Yeah.
so, of course, they turn that into, oh, so if it's a woman or a person of color, they won't be able to run the country. And
That's ridiculous.
I
What,
ate them
who's to say
alive.
that's not the best person?
I ate them alive with that one. In fact, I gave them a link to a video about Jordan Peterson being interviewed by Kathy Newman, who is Britain's
Oh,
far
I saw
left.
that.
Did you? There's a
Oh, that was
version of
crazy.
it that's hilarious, where there's a counter on there, and there's 40, it equals 44 times she said to him, so what you're saying is, and he said, and she would twist his stuff into something sexist or racist or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And every single time he said, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. And then explained himself and put scientific proof behind it. And by the end, she couldn't even formulate words anymore. I mean, he
I,
destroyed her with just facts, but he never rubbed it in her face. He was polite the
yeah,
whole time.
very
She
calm.
was not.
Right.
And this dude was trying to do the same thing to me. My reply got deleted. So I forget how that tied into what you were just saying, but no, I know exactly how it did. So this is what's going on with the far left movement. Is, for one, the postmodernism thing is intentionally murky enough that you can't really define it or supposedly defy it. Supposedly, I think we can, but it gives the people that feel a sense of purpose to be able to say, you are a racist, and I'm virtual signaling that I am the moral authority. That is a horror. And that's what I said. I said that is both rude and it's lazy. Okay. You're not presenting any factual evidence, but you're calling me a racist or a sexist. That is the most horrible thing you could say to another person, let alone somebody you don't know, a
I
stranger.
agree.
And
Now
it
here
is socially accepted now.
it is. And here's something is that, what do you think that, I mean, here's something I've been thinking about a lot, is that you're never going to convince that particular person that they're wrong.
That's
I mean,
right.
they're never going to come back and say, oh, I've looked at the facts that you sent me, Barry, and
Right.
you know what, you're right. But I don't think that that's ever going to happen. So that when you try to engage an argument with those people, it's like you dig deeper into the hole that they want you to go into. And
Apparently.
so what I've started to learn is that the best defense is to not respond. It's almost just like when I was a little kid, and my parents would be talking to the adults, and I came into the room and I said, blah 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 blah, and nobody responded to me, and then
Yeah.
and I just go back into the other room because it didn't even deserve a
They
response.
didn't indulge. I
Right.
understand. I understand. However, there is a complete monopoly on so-called educational. See, Quora is in the guise of being intelligent conversation. But
Right.
when it's absolutely guided, okay, here's another thing, completely related. You can look at almost any left-wing entertainment online magazine, such as, I don't know, People Magazine, or certainly Huffington Post. All of these quit hosting comments from average everyday people, because, and I know this for a fact, and it recently happened with Cleveland.com, our local newspaper online. They recently withdrew comments as well. And I know it's the leftist part. If you do it on the right, even YouTube, amazingly or not, still has comments. One of these days, they're going to disable them completely because they cannot back up their arguments intelligently. And at some point, they're going to back themselves in a corner when all you got is calling somebody a racist, sexist, xenophobe. It's hate. It's just, you only got hate, and you're only propping yourself up on a house of cards, virtual signaling on your soapbox via putting other people down with horrible like slander. There's nothing good about it.
No.
And I'm going to tell you something else that we need to be aware of. YouTube, hey, we still got our podcast, and I still had all of our original videos, but YouTube could deplatform us at any moment.
Right.
And
maybe after this show.
Maybe. It's just something to think about. I think it's such a slippery slope. You said, well, just don't indulge them. Well, you know what? I don't want to go on and argue with people. It's not the purpose I've ever had with Quora, but when I see such blatant ignorance and people slandering other people without any evidence, well, when I present evidence to the contrary, I'm not being mean. I'm just presenting evidence to the contrary.
I totally understand what you're saying. And my point is this, is that in the case that we're talking about with what you were saying on Quora, you actually had already stated the truth, and then they came back with a ridiculous response. Anybody looking at that has half a brain is going to say, well, that guy's ridiculous. And they're going to see, because the truth stands on its own, right?
Yeah, but when I present the truth, they delete it. That's Quora police delete it.
The truth was actually before you actually even responded to that person. And so you risk actually having the truth deleted, which was the original thing that you said. And so that's what I'm saying, is that you stated the truth. They came back with something ridiculous. And then anybody that looks at that can make up their own mind what the truth was or not. Because the point is when you argue with somebody that's already in the can on the left, you're not going to convince them.
Happens on the right too, though. If you're digging in your heels with your team, you don't listen to the other side.
You know what? You're making a great point, and I'm going to say that there are people on, right or left, you can be deceived, and that's all there is to it. And there are people that are exceptions to the rule, and I would say that those are the people that we're looking to be able to have conversations with.
Yes.
And the other people, I just say, let's leave them alone. Let them have their thing, and that's the end of that. There's a proverb that I was reading that says that the wise are people that are open to learning and open to knowledge, but the fool hates correction. And so
ego.
Here's you and I mean, I'm willing to say I'm wrong about something in the face of facts and truth. But the fool is never willing to face up to any kind of, they're never going to say that they're wrong about something. And those are people that it's not even worth having an argument with.
Well, you're right about that. I want to make this point again. I made earlier that I think we should talk about, everybody should talk about, and that is the reason everyone is so polarized today is what I've witnessed. And that is people try to pull out something as a fact to back up their argument, and it's just one of their teammates. It's one of their, whether it's far left, far right. And I've said before, okay, you're quoting Fox News, you got another one as well for proof. And that happened recently. And you're like, yeah, I got the Associated Press. That was cool.
Right.
But that if you're just using one of your fellow teammates and all you're doing is, that's the bubble. Okay. That is the so-called bubble. So you have to be able to listen outside of your bubble if you really want to back up your so-called facts or your point.
I agree. In other words, use your brain and think on your own and
And you
look at all
gotta
sides.
look at all
Right.
sides.
Yeah, and that's so important. And,
yeah.
and that goes right to the core of what our government actually stands for. If you take a look
True.
at the
Freedom of
Declaration of
speech.
Independence and the Constitution, it's not about believe what the government says. It's not about that at all. In fact, those two documents prove that you're not supposed to trust them.
That's right.
That's exactly what the core of those documents are, that you have been given your individual liberty and your individual freedom, and you are responsible for governing yourself. But you're in a society, so we actually need to have government because men and women are not angels. And we've put together a system of checks and balances because absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the First Amendment says that you've got freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And we need to have a check, which is the press, that comes in and does not trust them on your behalf to find out what the heck is going on. Now that's been completely corrupted. And
You
people
know
don't
what?
even understand what's inside of those two documents. That
I was gonna say though, you just gave a great argument for the postmodern movement. That's the seduction of it. That's the seduction of it.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's not to trust the government, it's not to trust the status quo and all of that.
It's true.
And I'm the same way. I don't believe currently, it's part of the O5O movement too. A lot of people on the left would say, man, that Barry, I don't know, he's kind of one of us. Because I believe that, okay, so unions came around at a time when we needed to balance out the otherwise slave labor kind of thing. So we came up with this standard of a 40-hour work week, 2 weeks vacation, all these standards, and retire at 65, all of that. And what that kind of did over time is, well, okay, we accepted jobs that we hate and bared with it because we're promised, certain pieces of fruit at the end of it. And I believe that we are emerging and evolving to a time where we now need to evolve beyond that. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm sure, and we're automating things so much. We have a awareness that we never had before. We have so much knowledge at our fingertips that we are mentally expanding at a rate unheard of before. And also, I'm going to get a little woo-woo here, but this. I believe we're also merging with technology, and that's coming around. I also believe we're becoming unisex, and I believe that for decades now. And I've been shocked.
I was with you up until then.
I know you. And I understand that. And I try not to say that.
I'm going to keep my manhood on this one.
I understand that. I understand that.
No, but what you are saying, though, is this starting out with, not trusting. And this goes back to another episode where you were saying that I was a loyal Republican, and I'm not.
Right.
I don't care about Republican or Democrat. I am a conservative, but as a conservative, my whole mindset is not to trust people with my life because it's my life. And so I have to make decisions. And, the fact is that if we're going to protect ourselves, we have to be skeptical about what we're hearing. And we have to be able to make up our own minds about this kind of stuff. And I think that also means that we've put together these politically correct machines out there to shut down our ability to think on our own. And I think that's the travesty that we're looking at right now, is that we should be able to have debates in the public without assassinating each other's character. And
you should be curious.
I think it's okay to be angry and angry even at each other, but not based on their character, but on the argument that they're putting forth. And we should be able to delineate the differences there. And I think that's what really makes America great, but we're losing that. We're losing that whole thing. And I think, and let me just finish with this. This show epitomizes that. I mean, here we are, Barry, I'm a Christian. You have more of an Eastern thought process. I'm a conservative. You're a liberal. I'm black. You're white. You live in Ohio. I live in California. I mean, come on. We have these tremendous differences, and yet we can come together, and mostly we can find things that we agree on, and we're the best of friends, and we respect each other.
We find what we have in common. And you know what, Merle? You know why we're such good friends and have been all this time? We allow each other to learn from each other.
We do.
We do.
Absolutely do.
Yeah, we listen to each other. We respectfully
I want the world
listen.
to be like this, Barry. That's the world I want to live in.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Hey, just switching gears a bit. I think we're just over an hour. I forget when we. Okay.
About 5 till.
Okay. I just finished watching not a documentary, a show, docu-series, maybe if you call it that, on Waco. Okay, in Texas, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. It was
Koresh, is it David Koresh?
Yes, Koresh. And it was interesting because it put the government in such a bad light, almost in a stereotypical way. You know, you had the lead FBI agent who was an ass, who was very officious and wanted to lean towards violence all the time, you know, almost in a stereotypical. They always do that in Hollywood. And then you had the negotiator guy who was very like, we can talk them out of there, you know, don't go in there with tanks, don't go in there and do that. And then it was a whole lot of sympathizing with David Koresh and his flock of people. And I would just love to get other opinions on this, because on the one hand, boy, I am all about criticizing the government and the violent way that they did handle that.
That was horrible.
It was horrible for sure. All the children died, like 25 children that were in there, because they threw tear gas in there, and they really were trapped. And but on the other hand, they painted David Koresh to be almost a little saintly. That guy was a pedophile. All right.
Oh,
he was one of those leaders, and this always happens. I've always said this: careful about following a human being for your religious, because as soon as they say, do what I say, they're going to ask for sex and or money in whatever order immediately. As soon as you buy in, that's coming. And so he declared himself to be the only one. I forget how he wrapped it into Christianity, but that he had multiple wives. Like, other people were married. He took, and he could only have sex. They could only have sex. He and this guy's wife with multiple people. And it started with a 12 or 14-year-old girl. He did that as well, married her, so to speak. And that was his wife. So it was disgusting in that regard. And they didn't show him in that light. Okay, this is a cult. It's manipulation. Now, on the other hand, they weren't hurting anybody but themselves, so it shouldn't have ended the way it did.
Well, there's similarities there to the Guyana tragedy with Jim Jones and that whole thing that happened down in Guyana. And he was doing the same thing. He was taking people's wives and he was, doing these terrible sexual things. I mean, and it goes back to this whole absolute power corrupts absolutely, whether it's a religious leader or a government leader. It's every single time you see the same blueprint there. And there's and gosh, it's funny because that documentary that I said, Out of Shadows, speaks to that as well. A good documentary to watch, but you're not going to feel good after that movie.
Oh, yeah.
After that one. There's a lot of things ring true in that.
I sense a common theme throughout this hour plus podcast, and that is don't trust anybody.
Right.
Think for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And use your gut. I mean, you get your head knowledge, but then there's that. I always feel like God leads you with your gut. There's something inside of your heart here where it just says, that looks good. Boy, that candy looks good, but maybe I should. My heart's telling me to stay away from that.
Yeah. It's funny
Follow
how
your heart.
different the heart and mind are,
Yeah.
because the mind is geared towards keeping you safe,
Hmm.
and you learn things to keep you safe. And, 1,000 years ago or whatever, it was not getting eaten by something, you
Right.
know, and it was certainly survival. Think of the Wild West days, just basic survival of getting some food. And so your head was just trying to keep you safe. But as we have less and less immediate dangers, which really we almost have none now, your head will start kidding you about our anxiety. It replaces different things like, oh, now this public speaking event is making me anxious to the point of, I feel threatened. No, that is why today, to your point, I think we do need to follow our heart a lot more. Our heart is why we don't follow our mind is why we don't follow our careers of passion as much as we should, because we have this sense of limited beliefs and then all of a sudden our heart isn't feeling right, not feeling full,
Yeah.
you know?
I've found in my life that following my heart, if somehow that turns out to be the wrong thing, I'm a lot easier on myself afterwards than
Nice.
if I don't follow my heart and it turns out that I made the wrong move.
Right.
It's like, you know what? Something in here was telling me to do that. Now I don't have that $1 million lottery ticket.
Right. All right, Merle. We got to get off of here. Any parting words?
And great show once again.
Yeah.
Always great to see you and be with you. And just one last thing I'll say is that just over 50 starting over, I'm doing this Zoom Bible study on
Oh,
Saturday afternoon. We did it a couple of weeks ago. It was so much fun. And this is sort of the new reality. It's just people from all over the country were on this
like
call.
how many people?
It was small. It was about 10 people were on the call.
Can people
But
join you?
yeah, so if you're interested, let us know through the show, and I'll let you know how to plug into that. But
Is it
this is a
something?
new reality, and we're talking about how to attain peace, practical ways of being able to obtain peace in a biblical way. And especially right now with everything that's going on, it's so easy to be completely out of sorts, and you don't have to be. And it sort of
Nice.
goes along with this whole thing that we were talking about with my job search and all that kind of stuff, is
Mhm.
that, you know what? God has you in the palm of his hands. You're going to be okay.
Nice. And by the way, if you do want to partake in Merle's Bible study, you can go to over50startingover.com, spell that out, no numerals, and you'll see mail at over50startingover.com right there. Reply, and we'll hook you up with that. All of our podcast links are there as well. Please subscribe, and you can see our latest video there as well. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please leave us comments and likes. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
listening. Merle, see you next week.
Yep. See you, Barry.